Well, hey, we're back on with the Gospel Edge and Gary Comer, the author of Game of Pulpits, The Seven Voices Vying for the Kingdom. Uh, Gary, you've been we've been talking about your book, Game of Pulpits, The Seven Voices Vying for the Kingdom. Can you talk about how you came up with the seven voices?
Yeah, and everybody asked that right off the bat. What are the seven voices? So, so that's kind of like almost the first question. And it is interesting. It could be that could be taken on in some different ways. Some people think of different theological nuances, that are out there within the different groups, and thinking that, that's what he's doing, and he's looking at some of these different, really tight, differences of theology. But what I when I kind of put these voices together, I was really looking at what I was bumping up against as I was working with churches and denominations, throughout the country, different ones from different places, and and bumping up against different frames of thinking, different visions for how we go about doing ministry. And so, in a way, what I was trying to capture with the seven voices are really their ministry thrusts. Okay, so and yet they're distinctive enough, for us to be able to kind of actually see what they are. And I just found that there's really value about talking openly, about these different visions that really, in a way, are kind of really rivaling, for really, in a way, what the answer is for the church. In a way, they're saying, "Hey, wow, this is what we need." And so, some of this experience, has happened right within my professorship, training students at Talbot Seminary, where I have students from all different backgrounds, come in. And so it is interesting in teaching that class where there's different schools of thought, right within right within the seminary, like different departments and all that. You can bump up against some different frames of thought, just as an example, so people can feel this a little bit, have this rich and deep, profound, interaction with the students about spiritual formation. In the class, we're all talking about spiritual formation, and one of the things that I really sense is that, as much as I love spiritual formation, and in fact, I love all those teachers and all those people who are, bringing insights into, kind of that. I also feel like there's a challenge, there's a rub that exists, kind of between, spiritual formation, teaching, training, and the actual kind of mission, formation, development of members, and perhaps heart of God, for the lost, engagement with those outside the church. And it's kind of like those two things aren't just kind of aligned. There's these different things that are happening, and at least at a practical level, at an outcome level. And so, those some of the things that I'm, that I was looking at. So yeah, these seven voices. And I'll say what they are, just so that people kind of get it, like, okay, redesigners, those who are championing innovative change. Okay, that there's a voice out there. There are some people who are championing that. We're going to talk about that here today. And so that voice, but Pentecostal wave, those championing the move of the Spirit. Yeah, okay, the move of the Spirit, the gifts of the Spirit, the move of the Spirit. And so that's a voice, Pentecostal students come in, but that's a voice. They are thinking about things very differently. And so the evangelicals, so I made that big conglomeration, that big big grouping of so many different believers from all sorts of different groups, networks, denominations, everything. Yeah, I made it a voice because I think, there is, a championing of cultural advance, right? How to, how's Christianity, advancing in the culture? Okay, so that involves politics, it involves, what some of our messaging. And so that's what I do with the evangelicals. And then, Christian capitalists, I say championing best resources, best kingdom resources. And so I wanted to speak to that voice. I think it is a major voice. I think it's a very influential voice. All the big platforms, schools, many of the many entities that are out there really working kind of to equip and to disciple, really people to resource, what's happening for the kingdom. Mega flag shippers. Okay, so I wanted to include the mega church picture, partly because I think there is a voice there that's happening, and I said championing church service attraction. Yeah, there's a lot happening within that. I don't want I'm not trying to box them in completely, but what I am trying to do is open up a conversation, about kind of really that voice and kind of where they are and some of the challenges that are within that picture, and opportunities as well. Some of the potentials within that picture, which I think there are some tremendous potentials there, for so much more to happen for the future. And then spiritual renewalists, so the Bible didactics, our Bible teachers as well as our spiritual formation leaders, so we've got them, and that's a big voice. And it's a big voice as far as, hey, if we get this, if we have this happen, then everything else is going to happen with it. And so, I question that, I challenge that. We look at that, and then nuclear options. And I said championing radical restructuring. And there are some of us out there. It's not a big, massive group, but there are some who are doing that or who are championing that, who have some ideas about how we might radically restructure things, so that we might see greater impact for the gospel. And so those are the seven. Again, kind of bumping up against it, seeing it out there, and then questioning and asking, okay, what do we do with this? Can we open this conversation up and talk about this openly and interact about this and benefit from that dialogue? And so that's the book.
Well, that's the book, but one of the things you did these in order. There, I'm sure there was a reason why there was a particular order to it.
Yeah.
But why did you start with the first voice, which is the redesigner's voice?
Yeah, and it's yeah, there's a number of reasons. I think the biggest is that I really wanted to start with where we are, meaning I wanna I want a voice that is really, you know, speaking into our current situation, the existing church that is happening right now, that speaks to every leader, every mission-minded member, so the championing innovative change, really in a way we're kind of we're faced with the question today, is okay, so for the future church, do we maintain the status quo, right? Do we keep going down the same track of what we're doing, within our church pictures? Or is the answer for the future church in doing things differently and in really, in a way, redesigning, the model of the church, the form of the church, some of what is happening with our discipleship and our equipping? Do we need to redesign? And so you can kind of see there, it's really a big question. And so that chapter and that particular voice It's not a chapter, it's multiple chapters. And it's multiple chapters for a reason. I didn't want to run over anyone out there who is, heading a church, involved in a leadership team, heading up the missions arms of what's happening, for the kingdom. I wanted to honor them, but also really speak into kind of where we are with this, and then kind of bring in this voice, and be able to look at it in really two different ways. One is kind of what is happening within our existing parameters. Many churches, I would say most churches are attractional, whether they're using that as a moniker, or, a way to identify themselves, or kind of the model of church. Most are attractional. Some are traditional. They're believer-oriented services, and not attractional tends to be really looking to kind of focus on bringing people in and reaching people via the service. And so that's kind of part of the strategic thinking, introduced, way back in the attractional shift with, Bill Hybels and Rick Warren. That template is well worn. I mean, it's out there, and it's not easy even for churches to kind of shift and to kind of move from that. So if we were to shift and move from that, if we were to see something greater and bigger happen, yeah, in the body, yeah, through the church and what we're doing, well, what would that look like? You see, and so the redesigners are then really, in a way, kind of looking at that, and offering something that actually is innovation. And I do make the distinction, in that I'm not going to give you all the book content. In fact, what I want to encourage readers: buy the book, get the book, because
Right.
the
Right.
book is it's a reading experience. It's a literary treatment that is really designed to kind of help you to see some things with the textures and the emotive feel, and to be able to get into that a little bit, so that it actually strengthens you and deepens you as a leader. I mean, that's why I'm writing it. So the book is able to do, I think, so much more than I'm able to do in just talking about it right here. Though we can talk about it. But one of the things that I do is this making a distinction between inspiration and innovation. Okay, inspiration. Okay, inspiration. That new creative idea for what you're going to do with your sermon series, what we're going to do with our, production, we're going to do this great little artistic thing, and we're going to bring something in, and this great stage prop, and, or, it can be along a lot of lines. Inspiration, kind of fits within a model, and that would be, kind of the attractional model. And so inspiration ideas are great, but they don't change the paradigm. See, they don't change the paradigm. And what we need for the future church is a paradigm shift. What we need is not just more inspiration injected in to kind of the current model that we have, but we need to really create some new model form inside what we're doing, or for some potentially, take on a whole different vision. But for most, we're looking at innovation, in what we're doing with our forms in our church, what we're doing, with kind of some of the models that we have, that are working for us, for discipleship, for our training, for the engagement side of learning, for the skills that are being taught. You see, innovation, when we bring innovation into the picture, then we have the chance to really change the paradigm. Innovation has its own superpower. And so anyways, that's kind of where that conversation goes. And you can see, kind of like, I think there are a lot of people who are in this voice. And so you'll know if you are this voice, the redesigner's voice. You'll know if you are, if you're kind of one of those people who's up on the whiteboard, drawing out, boxes and flow charts and graphs and whoa, oh wow, if we could do this and this and for people here and here, okay, what are you doing? You're designing. You see, you're designing. And really, in a way, you're redesigning, you're rethinking how to do this and how to do it better. And that's really what that voice is. And that is why that voice wins for the kingdom and will win for the future. But I want to say there are a lot of churches that really, in a way, right now are just kind of in a way maintaining really the status quo of what they've done. And sure, they're trying to find inspiration to do it better, maybe, but it's really in a way kind of maintaining. How do we get out of that? How do we redesign so that we could see greater fruitfulness for the gospel from our churches and through the people? So yeah, and I will say this about I don't want to give you too much on the content, but design. This is my illustration. In the book, design is like a cup. It's like a cup, a model, a designed model. It holds something. It's like a cup. It's a coffee cup. I got my coffee here. It holds something. So what does your church model for your services, for your discipleship, for your training? What does it hold? See, that's the big question. And some of us, if we are honest and we really look at it through, we would find, and this is where the reading is very valuable. We would find that perhaps our form doesn't produce the things that we thought it did. It's not having the impact and the effect. It doesn't actually fulfill what it is that Christ is wanting to do through people. And so we have to ask those hard questions. And so that's why the redesigning voice is so important. Yeah.
All right. Well, go out, get his book. Uh, it's a good one, and like he said, there's so much in there that's and he just talked. We'll talk about how to he bumped up all against these seven voices, and you'll be able to really see Gary's heart in the picture of the book, Game of Pulpits: The Seven Voices Vying for the Kingdom. Thanks, Gary.
Thank you.